When you share too much too soon, your brain dumps a flood of oxytocin, that feel-good chemical that makes us trust people and bond quickly. But here's the problem. It doesn't just flood your brain. It affects the person you're talking to in subtle, powerful ways. 5 quiet shifts happen in them the moment you overshare. And here's the thing. One of them might just be the reason why people start pulling away when you thought you were getting closer. The idea that oversharing is just too much, or that it makes you seem overly eager, is a surface-level explanation. It's deeper than that. When we overshare, we're not just giving information, we're activating a psychological mechanism in the listener that they don't even realize is happening. It's not just about being too open, it's about how we set the stage for how others feel about us. What happens in their brain changes how they see you. But let me be clear, this is not about you being wrong or broken. It's about understanding how this works in the brain so you can change the dynamics without feeling like you're forcing it. Dr. John Cacioppo, a psychologist at the University of Chicago, conducted a study on social behavior that found people tend to build trust faster with those who share vulnerable, intimate details early on. However, Cacioppo also showed that if that sharing exceeds certain limits, it can backfire, activating a discomfort response. So while oversharing creates a sense of closeness, it can also signal danger, and I'll show you why. Picture this. You're having a conversation with someone late at night. You're opening up about your deepest fears, your past relationships, the things that keep you awake at 2 a.m. You think it's helping you connect, but inside there's a gnawing feeling that they're pulling away. Why does it feel like this backfires? Why do people start getting distant, even though you thought you were showing them who you really are? In a moment like that, one of the things you feel is the pit in your stomach, a feeling that maybe they're no longer interested. Maybe that feeling of openness actually pushed them away. You start to tell yourself, I just need to stop sharing so much. But that moment of discomfort has already planted itself. They're already pulling back, and you don't know why. You're still thinking that maybe they just need time to process, but you've already crossed a psychological line, and you don't even realize it yet. Here's where it gets interesting. When you overshare, it changes something in the listener's brain, something that feels like an invisible push-pull. One of the quiet changes is that they start viewing you as more emotionally intense than they're ready for. That shift in perception can create a subconscious discomfort. They might feel overwhelmed or trapped by your vulnerability, even if they don't know why. This is why you start to notice distance creeping in. Now, let's break this down. The first thing that happens when you overshare is that the person you're talking to can start feeling an overabundance of emotional energy, something called emotional contagion. It's a process where emotions from one person quickly spread to another. The listener experiences your emotions, but if the intensity is too much, they feel overwhelmed. This happens because of the mirror neurons in their brain. These neurons allow us to feel the emotions of others, but when emotions are intense, they can trigger a stress response. That stress, though subtle, can make the listener subconsciously distance themselves. But here's the catch. It's not about you being too emotional or too needy. It's about their nervous system. Just like you can't stop your heart from beating, they can't stop their brain from reacting. When emotional energy overwhelms, their fight or flight system gets activated, and the only way their brain knows to cope is to back off. It's biology, not rejection, but the system at work that's trying to maintain balance. You're not broken, and neither are they. The second quiet change is that oversharing primes the listener for an unconscious sense of responsibility. When someone opens up to you emotionally, your brain releases oxytocin, which is known as the bonding hormone. This hormone makes us feel connected and empathetic, but when someone shares a lot, the oxytocin release can make the listener feel responsible for your feelings. It's a deep, almost unspoken connection that can create pressure. They might start to feel like they need to take care of you, or worse, like they're now emotionally tied to your well-being in a way that feels heavy. Now, stay with me here. The third quiet change is something a little less obvious. When you overshare, it disrupts the pace at which relationships typically unfold. It accelerates intimacy in a way that can feel like it's rushing the process. There's a psychological theory called the social penetration theory by psychologists Erwin Altman and Dalmas Taylor. It suggests that relationships develop in layers, with deeper layers being shared over time. If you start peeling back those layers too quickly, it feels to the other person like they're being asked to dive into deeper emotional waters than they're ready for, and that can leave them feeling like they're in too deep too fast. Here's where the shift happens. The more you overshare, the more you might be making them feel like they don't have time to build their own emotional layers at a healthy pace. So instead of becoming more attached to you, they may begin retreating. Again, it's not about being too much. It's just that their emotional timeline doesn't sync with yours. It's not rejection, it's a mismatch of pace. The fourth shift occurs when you trigger a sense of discomfort in them. When someone shares too much too soon, it activates an unconscious sense of unease. It's like a mental alarm that goes off in their brain. In a 2014 study conducted by Dr. Matthew Lieberman at UCLA, it was found that too much disclosure can actually activate the brain's threat detection system. This means that your vulnerability, despite being honest and open, can make the other person subconsciously feel unsafe. Again, not because of anything you did wrong. It's just how the brain processes emotional overload. Finally, the fifth change. Oversharing can lead to what psychologists call emotional withdrawal. It's not an obvious shutdown, but a subtle retreat. The person starts to pull back emotionally, not because they don't like you, but because they start to feel that your emotional state is something they can't handle. It's a self-protective mechanism. But what does this mean for you? How do you start changing this dynamic without cutting yourself off emotionally? The key lies in awareness. By understanding how emotional energy and trust building really work in the brain, you can shift the way you share without closing yourself off. You don't need to overshare to connect. It's about sharing in a way that matches the rhythm of the relationship. The next time you find yourself about to spill your guts, pause for a moment. Notice the rhythm. Notice the pressure you feel to connect. And then try this. Instead of oversharing everything all at once, pace it. Share one thing, give the person space to respond, and then share another. Instead of a flood, think of it like a gentle stream that lets the other person catch up. This shift is about trust, not speed. You're not running a marathon to connection. Instead, think of it as a dance where you both have space to move. The key is to trust that the right people will want to hear more over time, not just all at once. In the end, you're not broken for needing connection. You're human. You're not flawed for wanting to be seen. But you can start to reframe how you connect with others, one step at a time, with awareness, and with trust that those who are meant to be close to you will find their way in on their own time. If you don't pause, if you don't recognize the subconscious forces at play, you might end up missing the opportunity for a connection to build slowly, beautifully, and more naturally. So here's the next step. Before you overshare again, ask yourself, am I trying to feel close, or am I just sharing to fill a void? This distinction is key to making sure your emotional needs are met without unintentionally pushing others away. You're not alone in this. It's completely normal to crave deep connection, but you've got to give it time. Time for the other person to catch up, just like you're learning to catch up with yourself.